also want to bring in Major John Spencer of West Point's Modern War Institute. Major, this was a dramatic rescue, it sounds like. Israel says about 100 hostages still remain in Gaza. So how does this military operation now impact the broader effort to get the remaining hostages home?
I mean, I think it's a signaling that Israel's approach is the correct approach. Israel's military pressure led to actionable intelligence, which this historic operation involving basically the nation of Israel to retrieve its hostages in such a densely populated area where Hamas is using human shields. I think it shows that Israel's approach of clearing dense urban areas, that the hostages are in southern Gaza, and that the best way to bring them home and to create a new phase of the operation for the Palestinian people is to continue to do these very intelligence-driven operations and clear those urban areas.
Everybody wants to see every hostage freed, of course. Just remind our viewers that dozens of hostages were freed under the previous hostage negotiated deal, right, when they exchanged prisoners, Palestinian prisoners, for dozens of Israeli-held hostages in Gaza. And now 3 have been rescued by these special operations. So it's just too few still. Molly, these warnings now of a ground invasion into Rafah have escalated the tensions among the international community. Egypt, who shares a border with Rafah, for example, warning of, quote, dire consequences. Saudi Arabia warning of very serious repercussions. 1 million people are there in the south. Civilians were told to go south. They've been pushed down into Rafah. So where are they supposed to go now?
That's exactly right, Anna. They were told to go here. And I think when we talk about the consequences of an operation last night, Gaza health officials say that dozens of civilians in that area were killed. We've seen video. Our team was out filming overnight in Gaza at the hospitals, at the local areas. And you see these dramatic videos of the civilians, as you say, who have already been displaced, who have already evacuated from other parts. But the criticism is coming from Europe, from the U.S., from some of Israel's staunchest allies. And actually, when Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke with President Biden last night, Anna, in the readout we got from the White House, it said the president reaffirmed his view that a military operation in Rafah should not proceed without a credible and executable plan for ensuring the safety of and support for more than 1 million people sheltering there. Clearly, that plan has not reached the U.S. desk and has not been announced by any Israeli officials to actually have a way to keep those people safe. Really, some of the strongest criticism we've heard has been from Egypt, as you mentioned, a strategic ally in this. But the strongest language, they've talked about dire consequences. And they've also talked about how really this is clearly an effort to displace Palestinians out of Gaza into Egypt, something that Egypt definitely does not want. Anna, they've also said this risks the peace treaty between Egypt and Israel. Anna?
Major, NBC News has some exclusive reporting about President Biden and Netanyahu's relationship, with President Biden saying his Israeli counterpart is, quote, giving him hell and is impossible to deal with. Now, the National Security Council says they have a respectful relationship, but I got to wonder, could there be a breaking point for Biden, and where is that breaking point?
I mean, I have no clue on it. I know they have decades long of a relationship, both positive and turbulent. But I mean, and I agree with the cause that Israel is and should continue to develop plans to evacuate the civilians out of combat areas, to include any area necessary to eliminate the last remaining 2 battalions of Hamas that are using them as human shields. But Israel has done that. And by all measures, to include my study for decades of urban operations, Israel has gone above and beyond any army on the planet to prevent civilian harm. And I think they will continue to do that, like the president is asking, and Israel has done. They've reduced airstrikes. They've reduced the casualties. They've reduced the number of operations. I mean, I understand the relationship is tense and it's a tension for the world. But I think that the best way to end this is to continue to do the operation with extreme care, but to finish Hamas.
You obviously have the expertise that so many of us don't, but when you hear 28,000 people have been killed in Gaza, that is just a heartbreaking data point. And of course, that number coming from the Palestinians there in Gaza, run by Hamas. Thank you so much. Retired Major John Spencer and Molly, always good to have you in your reporting. Really appreciate it. Up next.